Greetings and welcome back to another video by OSI's Online IELTS. So my name is Anish Patel and I'm the academic head here at OSI Study and Immigration Consultants. And in today's video, we are going to learn how to write academic writing task 1. Okay, we are going to firstly discuss the basic things that you should keep in mind, do's and don'ts if you will, and then next step would be to take a look at the marking criteria in detail, and then the final step will take a look at different types of questions in academic writing task 1. Alright, so a lot of things to cover. Without wasting any time, let's get to the slides. So as you can see on the screen, the basic things you need to keep in mind, like I said, do's and don'ts. The first item and one of the most important ones is you have to write a minimum of 150 words. Even if you have written one word less than that, you stand to lose a lot of points. So always try to write between 165 to 170, just in case if you have repeated a lot of words or phrases, then those things will be deducted from your total word count, so that even if such deductions happen, you should not lose more words and fall below 150. The next thing, it's about time management. Now we all know that we get 60 minutes, that is 1 hour for our writing modules. Out of that, they recommend spending 20 minutes for task 1 and 40 for task 2. I, however, believe slightly different. Task 1 is very objective in nature. You don't really have to generate any ideas. You don't have to be creative. You don't have to sit and plan your response. You don't have to think of any examples or anything like that. So all the data that you need to mention is already in front of you on the question paper or on the screen if you are appearing for the computer-based test. You just have to convert that data into sentences, make comparisons and all sorts of things, and write 150 words at least. So that should not take you more than 15 minutes. If you practice good enough, I have seen it, few of my students are able to finish their task 1, doesn't matter academic or general, they're able to finish it within 10 minutes. So with enough practice, this is possible. Now the reason why I'm recommending you spend less time on this is because task 2 weighs twice as much as task 1, and the things that I said you don't have to do in task 1 are exactly the things that you have to do in task 2. You have to be creative, you have to generate ideas, generate examples, plan your response, plan your arguments, make sure your structure is properly, and revise it multiple times to find out if you have made any silly mistakes. So the key is spend less time on task 1 while making sure the quality is up to the mark, and spend more time on task 2. Simple as that. Get back to the slides. Now it says you have to identify the main trends and or highlight key information and summarize it in a report. So basically you just don't have to report all the information in form of sentences. You also have to highlight the main things and make a summary. Not all the things have to be included, it has just to be a summary. That's pretty much it. Next thing, it says that you'll be using a different range of grammatical structures. That is very, very important, so make sure that you do that. It weighs 25% of your total band score. Alright, so using passive voice, compound sentences, complex sentences, all those things are going to be important. Another thing, it says it has to be objective. Alright, so you do not need to provide opinions. You do not need your own knowledge in the subject matter. Just summarize the given information. Even if you know for a fact that the information given is wrong, still it is not your job to act on it. Your job is just to write a report, and that's pretty much it. Then this one is also quite important. It says to provide a 1-sentence overview or the summary of main trends. Now this is only the thing that will allow you to score maximum points for task achievement. We'll talk about task achievement in a minute, but make sure that your report contains a 1-sentence overview of the key things that are happening, the main trends that are happening. You can choose to write your overview in the beginning or in the end, it's entirely up to you, but make sure that it is there. Okay, and in the end, it's just like an advice. Make sure your writing is good enough, it is legible. I should be able to read it for me to be able to check it. This is especially for the paper-based test takers. You do not have to use bullet points, notes, abbreviations, or anything like that. Even contractions, you should not use contractions in academic writing task 1. The language has to be formal, so no contractions at all, just write full words. Okay, so these are the basic things that you need to keep in mind. If you want, you can go back, just rewind a little bit, take a screenshot of that slide so that you can refer to it later on when you're practicing on your own. Now, let's get back to the slides and discuss the 4 criteria that are used to judge your score. Right. So, as you can see, there is a little table over here. Now, you can find this information pretty much anywhere online or in any IELTS book, but it is kind of difficult for some people to understand what exactly it means. Okay, so each of these 4 criteria, they weigh 25%. Task achievement, as you can see the bullet points, the first one itself reminds you to write a 1-sentence overview like we just discussed. It is important because it shows your ability to notice the important parts of data and to compile those things and present a solid point. Then, making comparisons and contrast. Now, this instruction is going to be there in every writing task 1 question. It will clearly say summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and making comparisons where relevant. Okay, so whenever it is necessary, you have to show comparisons. You can't just expect to score good points if you have just presented the data without making any comparisons at all. And then finally, a minimum of 150 words. So all these things, they are going to go towards your task achievement scores. Then a little bit more trickier one is coherence and cohesion. Right. So basically, in simple words, is your writing easy to understand? All right. So if I'm reading your response and I have to read it again and again and again, then there is something wrong there. The way that you have written it, it's not very easy for the reader to understand. So if I have to do it again and again, I am going to deduct your points as an examiner. So that has to do with coherence. It has to be described in an organized way. The sentences should be clearly linked with each other. Use the cohesive devices that are related to comparisons, such as however, in contrast, whereas, meanwhile, while, and such kind of contrasting words. You should be able to use them so that you are able to link your sentences together and establish an invisible relationship that clearly indicates that there is comparison going on over here. The next item you see is lexical resource. That is basically your vocabulary. Now, in different types of writing task 1, you will have to use different types of vocabulary. So for example, if there is a map, you'd be using some directional words such as northeast, southeast, and all those things. If it is a process, then you should be using passive voice and vocabulary related to that specific process. If it is a line graph, a bar graph, or a pie chart, or a table, then words like sudden increase, steep decline, something like that. So adjectives, adverbs, they are very key words, key things that will help you improve your range of vocabulary. Even learning proportion related words like 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 3/4, or something like that. Percentages as well. 33% is known as 2/3, something like that. Not 2/3 exactly. You will have to forgive me for my mathematical skills. I'm not very good at that, but you do get the idea about proportions. So moving on to grammatical range and accuracy. Now, grammar, coherence, cohesion, and vocabulary, all those 3 things are exactly the same in writing task 2 as well. Okay. It is only the difference between task achievement and task response. Response is in writing task 2, achievement is in writing task 1. So with grammar, range, and accuracy, everyone basically knows what accuracy is. It is how accurate or how correct your grammar is. Range is quite tricky to achieve at times. You will have to incorporate different types of sentences. Some of them simple, some of them complex, some compound sentences, even a combination of complex compound sentences. Even sometimes it is a good idea to include passive sentences in your response as well. So if you have presented a range of sentences all the while maintaining accuracy, you should be able to score very good points for grammatical range and accuracy. So like I said, all these 4 criteria, they weigh 25% each. Now, if you're struggling with just one criteria, and no matter how hard you work, if you are not seeing any improvements, there is no need to worry. Just try as much as you can, and then you can focus on the other 3 criteria, because you can still bring up your average if all the other 3 criteria are still done very nicely. All right. Now, I'm going to take you back to the slides, and I'll show you different types of questions that are used in the academic writing task 1. There are a total of 6. So let's take a look at the first one. So as you can see, the most common one we all recognize is a bar graph. It is also known as a column graph. As you can see, if the bars are vertical, it is technically identified as a column graph. If the bars are horizontal, it is identified as a bar graph. So moving on, the next one is a line graph. Now line graph and bar graph, they are pretty much similar in nature. Instead of vertical or horizontal bars, there are lines. Okay, so usually what I have noticed is line graphs are used when there are a lot of different categories and a lot of different data points. But the structure, the way of response, the vocabulary, all those things will remain the same in both bar graphs and line graphs. Then comes table. Personally, I believe table is the easiest, because you don't really have to find the information. You don't really have to develop the skill of being able to read a graph. Table is so straightforward. All the information is clearly presented in there. You just have to find out the key things and make comparisons wherever it is necessary. Again, the vocabulary would still be the same. Then comes pie chart. Slightly trickier, because over here in pie chart you would be using a lot of passive writing as well, and some specific vocabulary words as well, like share of the pie, 1/4, quarter, 1/3, and so on so on. So percentages are always going to be there in pie charts. So it is also a good idea to learn some synonyms or learn some different ways in which you can express percentages, like proportion, or 1/3, or 1/4, nearly half, nearly a quarter, majority, minority. All those words you'll have to try and learn them. Okay. Then moving on to flowchart, another tricky one. The reason why, it's because while you're describing a process, you will have to make sure to use passive voice throughout your response. Okay, again, the structure is going to be the same. The vocabulary might depend on the type of task or the type of process it is. If it is a manufacturing process, you may have to use relevant terms. If it is something more like a household process or something like, making some food item or a recipe, then you would have to use relevant vocabulary for that. And in the end, there is a map. Now maps, again, they require specialized vocabulary. You don't need extra knowledge or anything like that. You just need to be able to use directional words. Now as you can see on the screen, sometimes there will be a magnetic compass sort of thing drawn over here with arrows marked and directions marked. If this thing is not there in your map, then it is safe to assume that the top side is north, and then you will be able to find out all the other directions. So a total of 8: north, east, south, and west, and then there is northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. Okay. Apart from these words, there are some other words as well. We usually give directions by saying, go straight ahead and take a right turn or a left turn, but that should not be the case when you're describing things in IELTS test. You should be using directional words. You should be using exits or entries, words like that if you're talking about roundabouts. If two buildings are right next to each other, you don't say they are right next to each other. You try to use a different word, like they are adjacent to each other. All right. If there is a building opposite from me, I would use the word across. That would be a good way to describe such things. Okay. Then if there are buildings, as you can see on the second map over here, there are certain buildings that are in a straight line. So don't use words like that, those buildings are in a straight line. You can either say that they are adjacent to each other, or they are on the northern side of the pedestrian only street, something like that. Okay, so these are the different types of questions that you can expect in your academic writing task 1. Now, maps and flowcharts, they are always going to be asked individually, but if there is a bar graph, line graph, pie chart, or a table, there could be a combination, like a bar graph has been combined with a pie chart, or a table has been combined with a pie chart, or there is a combination of bar graph and a line graph. So you'll have to use appropriate vocabulary and make sure that your response is as good as possible. Okay. Apart from these, if you want to learn more about these things, if you want to learn what type of vocabulary you should use, if you want to learn the type of grammatical structures you should be using in academic writing task 1, then feel free to reach us out. We do provide online coaching services all across the world at very nominal prices. So without wasting any time, if you're looking for IELTS practice, IELTS coaching, feel free to reach us in the comment section, or you can also contact us via our social media channels, which I have mentioned below. Right, so that would be the end of our video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so that you're notified of any future updates. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day ahead. Thank you.